Okay, so for this sprint, I'm mainly going to be looking at the alarmable, inputable, and game object classes for registration. So inside of alarmable, we have an array of data to hold on to for each of our alarms. So also when we trigger our alarms, depending on the number, we'll trigger its respective alarm function. And when we submit for registration, we'll get the inputted alarm number and set the data for that respectively. Then inside of our alarm manager, we use insertion sort to add our alarms based on the current game time. And then when we process for elements, if the current time is greater than the first element in the list, we'll execute that alarm and then remove it from the list there. So then inside of our alarmable attorney, just one of the attorneys we have, our alarmable manager can only access to trigger alarm, and then our registration commands can only call the registration functions. Then inside of inputable, we basically just pass in a key and event value pair. Whenever we do that, we make sure that key event pair has not been created yet. And likewise, when we submit for deregistration, we make sure that pair does exist and has been registered. Then for our keyboard event manager, we also go in here and take a look. Basically, it processes a whole list of single key event managers. Each of those kind of looks at their own key individually, and each of these event managers processes both press and release events. So for instance, if the key was pressed down on the current frame, but in the last frame the key was not down, then that was a change, so we'll go ahead and execute on that specific key pressed event. And then just some other things, inside of our Atom engine, we also call our time manager attorney to update the game time. Basically every frame, we've also got the set to print frame time and total game time. I'll look at that shortly. Also inside of our scene class, in addition to all our managers, we also have our camera manager, which is now local to the scene. So if we called our frigate class to get our current camera, we basically just have a wrapper function to go inside of our scene manager. Then also looking at our scene in our update function, we have a register broker, alarm manager, keyboard manager, and update manager there. Looking inside of our frigate class, when we initialize, we have two different alarms passing in our alarm number and its duration. Also some inputable events for the different keys and those events there. When we call those, basically just some debug messages, the alarms will loop, and also some different key press events. Also some code to make the camera follow the frigate. And then in our plane, we have one alarm and one inputable registration. So if we go ahead and run this real quick, we can see down at the bottom right, the frame time and the total game time are updating there. So let me just go ahead and toggle that off real quick. And then let's jump back in here and I'll demonstrate the alarms and the key presses. So down at the bottom right, we can see the plane and the frigate are updating their alarms. They all seem to be working fine. If I press and release the spacebar, we get some events for those. Pressing T, we'll get some events for that. If we hold T, we get nothing. If we release T, we get nothing. And if we press the Enter key, we'll also spawn our bullets that disappear after 1 second. And we can kind of go a little crazy with everything here too, and it should all be fine. Okay, great. So then let's go into our bullet class real quick, just quickly demonstrate that. So once we press the Enter key for the frigate, we'll call the bullet factory to create a new bullet. Once we initialize the bullet, we'll submit the bullet for entry. So this is the only place it's called. We'll go inside of our game object and request from the scene to submit it. And then once we go through the commands, we'll actually connect it to the scene and call our scene entry function. So going back inside here, inside of our bullet, we'll actually register everything, register our alarm. Once the alarm is done, we'll submit for exit. Again, only place this is called. So once we go in here, we'll call the scene to request that exit. And then when we disconnect from the scene, we'll actually go ahead and exit and deregister our bullet and return the object to the bullet factory. And then the actual bullet pointers themselves won't be deleted until we actually call the bullet factory to actually delete that. So going through our debug code, basically we delete our asset managers, we delete all of our game objects and all of the commands associated with those. And here we can see we deleted 7 bullets, deleted those commands, and also got rid of our bullet factory and all of our other objects as well.